Did you know that Travis Kelce averaged 4 targets per game in just 3 games with Rashee Rice last year? Did you know that Xavier Worthy scored 19.6 or more PPR fantasy points in 5 of his last 6 games, including the playoffs last season? Did you know we're going to talk about Rashee Rice at the top of the show? We welcome you to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. It's Wednesday, August 27th. We've got that breaking news to get to, but also the do not draft list. You know, guys, you better relish this now. I love talking about drafts, but in 8 days, that is pretty much over. We're going to be talking about starts and sits. Welcome to the show. That's Dave Richard and Jamie Eisenberg. I am Adam Azer. Let's get right into the big news. So you're going to give us do not drafts for quarterback, running back, tight end, and wide receiver. First, though, Rashee Rice accepts a 6-game suspension to start this season. Jamie, I'm going to throw it to you first. Give me your reaction for everyone relevant in this Rashee Rice discussion.
I think it's actually good news that he's accepting the suspension prior to the season for a couple of reasons. One, at least we find out for anybody drafting over Labor Day weekend or from this point through the start of the season, you know what you're dealing with. So the uncertainty of the previous situation, which was he was going to play out the first 4 games and then we wouldn't know when the suspension would happen. You now know that the first 6 weeks of the season you don't have Rashee Rice. I think from his perspective, he's still a number 3 wide receiver. He's going to hopefully come back from week 7 on. They do have their week 10 bye. But now you get him for the fantasy playoffs, assuming he's healthy, and hopefully whatever extra time he needed to get that knee right, now he should be 100%, no questions. Not that there was any concern right now, but you know what you're getting. I think from a fantasy perspective, I'm not moving him. He's wide receiver 33. I know what I'm dealing with at this point, and you have the ability to get replacement options to start the season. It does stink. I was in one draft over the weekend where somebody combined Jordan Addison and Rashee Rice with the hope of I get Addison coming back when Rice is back. Now you don't have both those guys for the start of the season. I'm in a dynasty league that Adam runs, the Big Burger Dynasty League, where I have Rice and Chris Godwin. So I was kind of playing that scenario out where maybe have Rice and then transition to Godwin until Rice comes back. So at least you know what you're dealing with. I think Rice is just, again, number 3 fantasy receiver. You get a great start for potentially Travis Kelce, fantastic start for Xavier Worthy. And Worthy may be the one who doesn't give up the role in terms of who's the best receiver for the Chiefs rest of season. So Marquise Brown gets a boost. Maybe Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyquan Thornton, those type of guys get a boost. Nobody's drafting them with any sort of confidence. I think Marquise Brown maybe gets off to a good start. We'll see how that sort of impacts him. And for Patrick Mahomes, look, you might want to bring him back down to the Baker Mayfield level comparatively to where he was closer to the top 5 guys, the Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow being the bottom 2 of that group. So for me, Mayfield is potentially a better option to start the season. But I think Mahomes still stays at QB6. Worthy's a great round 4 pick right now, maybe round 5. And then Rice I would look for in the round 7 range.
I think it stinks because I loved the idea of, all right, I've got Rice for a little bit at the beginning of the year, and then I've got him for the fantasy playoff run, and in between
But we didn't know that
out.
We didn't know that, though.
But we figured that he was going to play those first 4 games. Then we didn't know how long the suspension was going to be. That's fair. We didn't know if it was going to be 6, 8, 10 games. But he did have a chance to come back toward the end of the season. Now I know that I don't have him for 7 of the first 10 weeks of my fantasy football season. That's tough to deal with. That's going to be tough to look at. And if you draft him, that rules out getting guys that are going to get off to a slow start or suspended to begin the year, like Jordan Addison, like Chris Godwin. Those are guys I would have paired with Rashee Rice if Rice were going to play the first 4 games of the year. And so I thought about it a little bit, and I agree he's more of a number 3 receiver, but I think I'm going to move him down into late round 6. And when I draft him, it's going to be with the idea of, okay, I've got at least 2 wide receivers already, and I'm going to like maybe a couple of wide receivers I could get in round 7. And then I'm good on wide receiver. I can start with that core 4 to begin my draft and to begin my season. I'm not going to try and find a replacement on the Chiefs like Marquise Brown or Tyquan Thornton. I am a little more interested in Travis Kelce, believe it or not. Yeah. Because 13.9 PPR points per game in the 13 games without Rashee Rice last year, that's pretty good. And even if he's at 11.5 PPR points per game, okay, that's not somebody I'm going to take in the first 5 or 6 rounds, but it's somebody that I'd be interested in at tight end. I'd settle for Travis Kelce. I still think Mahomes is going to have a great year. I'm going to keep him right where I have him as the 6th quarterback off the board.
Just to give you a real-life situation, just as a Rashee Rice fantasy manager who drafted him last week, this is our IDP league, Adam, so you're in this league as well. Again, this was the majority of offensive players still coming off the board. So I started 2 receivers in the first 2 picks were Justin Jefferson and Puka Nacua. Rice is a 3-receiver league, so I think this is different than a 2-receiver league where it's easier to get by. So Rashee Rice is the 3rd receiver that I have on this roster. I also have Christian Kirk, so that's a great replacement option because Kirk, great start of the season in terms of a schedule, guy you can get later and pair with Rice, and then you see what happens with Kirk moving forward. I also did purposely draft Marquise Brown, so the only thing I would disagree, Dave, is I don't mind Marquise Brown in a deeper league as a potential replacement option because, look, he's a proven commodity. He should do well knowing the system, knowing the offense, and they are going to diversify some of the targets, not just funneling them through Xavier Worthy and Travis Kelce.
Adam, one last thing. Here are some wide receivers that are going, this is according to our ADP, 80th overall or later. You tell me if you'd love to pair these guys.
Oh, I'll do one better for you with 120th or later, but go ahead.
Well, let's do 120th then. And if
you got Marvin Mims,
120th.
Rashid Shaheed. These guys could potentially get off.
Yeah, but do you really want to start Marvin Mims or Rashid
Demario
Shaheed
Douglas?
for 7 weeks?
No, but you want to take shots on guys later, especially first off,
you're doing that anyway, though.
If you drafted Rice, you want to look for some guys off waivers. Jalen Coker now with the Adam Thielen trade. Like, there are guys you can find very, very late or on waiver wire options right now that can help you.
Yeah, but that's not who I'm going. Oh man, I lost Rashee Rice. I'm going to start Jalen Coker. Dave is right. You take shots on those guys no matter what. But Dave is, if you're just going to give us names of guys we can get around 8 or later or whatever that we can just throw in our starting lineup confidently. Yeah, let's hear some names.
This is according to ADP. I don't think you're actually going to see all these guys, but Stephon Diggs is going to be there. Cooper Kupp is going to be there. Michael Pittman's going to be there. Rome Odunze, I doubt he makes it. Chris Olave would be a dream at this point. Same thing with Matthew Golden. And why is Brandon Aubrey a top 110 pick? What's wrong with you guys taking a kicker that early? That's really about it. Right. Khalil Shakir. Keon Coleman, my guy, is still a round 10 pick in our ADP. I would love to get Keon Coleman and use him as the replacement to begin the year over Rashee Rice. So you can find some receivers, Adam, after that round 6, 7 range that you could use as a wide receiver 3 if you decide to take Rashee Rice in round 6.
All right, last thing I'm going to say. Now, look, they played the Chargers twice last year, and they were both very low-scoring games. But I look at their first 6 games, and I see some shootout potential here. So for a guy like Worthy or Kelce, get you off to a big start. You do have the Chargers. You get the Eagles. You get the Giants. You get the Ravens, Jaguars, Lions. I see some opportunities here for some big, fun Chiefs games, and maybe Worthy and Kelce get off to huge starts. That'd be fun.